It is the Blue Room. It is your weekly show. And Everton are appearing on the horizon, looming larger and larger and larger. Just 15 days until the Premier League season starts. And everything's been quite calm and composed after last night's 4-0 loss to Minnesota United. After a week where we started with a lot of heat waves, it was very much out of the frying pan and into the fire, wasn't it? Joining me to go through it all, two wonderful guests. Les Roberts. Les, how are you, mate?
I'm all right. I've kind of kept away from Everton and Twitter and stuff, really. I've sort of not been dipping into it as much as I usually would. And it's been quite a nice experience, actually. I'm taking this pre-season to like just stay away from most of it. So I might not have been the best person to get on tonight, but we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, well, sorry for asking you in that case.
No, it's fine. You know, I like to come on and talk to you lads anyway. But, you know, if we could talk about anything other than football, that'd be brilliant.
Yeah, I've got Mike the Asher as well. People who are watching on YouTube will be able to see that he's very much enjoying himself. Les, do you want to describe what you can see in Mike's little window for those who aren't watching on YouTube?
So if you're listening to this on the podcast, Mike, who's grown quite the good beard now as well.
Thank you.
It's looking good. He's wearing a trademark Mike the Asher shirt and he's drinking rum from a little ceramic pineapple with a blue and white sort of diagonally striped straw. It's a vibe. It is, isn't it? Yeah.
So you're doing well. Then we can take it, Mike.
Yeah, I've gone full Diasha. But the best thing about this is the lid lifts off. How cool is that? I know for audio listeners, I'm very sorry, but honestly, this is a tremendous little piece of kit. And listen to this as it goes back on. What a noise! What a noise!
If you are listening on the podcast, by the way, watch on YouTube so you can see this and subscribe as well. There you go.
Yeah. Do all those things. If you're listening on the podcast, subscribe. If you've got anything nice to say, leave us a nice review as well. All those things help with the algorithms. And
if you've got bad things to say, don't.
Yeah,
don't do that.
Prefer not. We've had a few of them, but you know, people who've got bad things to say are usually more prone to say them. So, you know, all feedback is fine. But how did we deal with the heat earlier this week, lads? Are we okay? Are we through it? Mike's shaking his head. You were in London, weren't you, mate? It sounded pretty horrific.
So I've been in London for work twice in the past month. One was the day of a once-in-a-generation train strike, and once was the day of a once-in-a-generation heat wave. I don't think I should be going to London anymore. I just think I should not be allowed. It was too hot. Didn't like it. But this is much better. What is it now? Like 19 degrees. This is my summer. This is my summer. Like, I love this.
I don't like this sort of weather. I mean, I didn't like earlier in the week, but this is just too humid and like, I don't know, it's not sunny. It's just a bit sticky out.
Nah, it's fine. I love it. This is me in peak summer where I can act as if it's 28 degrees, but I'm not going to end up going ridiculously burnt because obviously we all know I am the palest man in the world. So this is why, hence the rum and the straw and everything else.
Summer vibes, yeah.
How about you, Les?
I was in London as well on Monday and Tuesday, and I should have been back on Tuesday, but the trains got cancelled. So I got to Euston just as all the boards went black, and they were like, the announcer was like, "Nah, no one's leaving today, by the way."
Worst place in the world, isn't it? Euston when it's busy.
Yes,
and hot.
Yeah. So I was in a travel lodge for both nights with a little fan and the window open, doing absolutely nothing for me.
That sounds like Alan's Travel Tavern.
It very much was. Well, when I got there, they had aircon in the reception, and I was like, "God, this is brilliant! It's a travel lodge. It'll have aircon in the rooms and everything." And then the guy behind the counter goes, "We've not got aircon behind the counter," which I thought was really bad. You know, there's people stood behind the counter with no air conditioning, but the people who just walk through the reception get it. Shite. And then he said, by the way, there's none in the rooms either. So wasn't ideal.
Not ideal at all.
I'm in the reception.
So
yeah, exactly. Yeah. We are through it, but unfortunately, like I said, Everton growing bigger and bigger on the horizon. 4-0 lost to Minnesota United last night. I stayed up and watched it. It wasn't good. And listen, I know you lads have watched varying degrees of the game, and I know there'll be plenty of people sort of saying it's only pre-season, etc. But I think, Les, what sort of stuck out for me, and probably what we're going to focus on more than anything, as opposed to the actual performance, was what the manager had to say after the game, because I think I was sort of expecting him to maybe play it down a little bit and talk about the team's fitness and working on that and looking ahead to the new season, which he did, to be fair. But there were a few lines in there which were quite striking and quite blunt. I think he mentioned that we were in a relegation battle last season and sort of inferred that we need to get out of the mindset of thinking that avoiding that was good or we're going to be there again. He made some very pointed comments around transfers, and it's almost like Lampard's gone early on his big bollocking for the season already. It's like using your fancy football wild card in week one, but he's used it before the season's already started, hasn't it? You know, I mean, you were saying before we started recording that what he said and the sort of tone in which he said it had the sort of vibe of the 4-0 after Crystal Palace and what he had to say that day.
Yeah, it's kind of gone full circle already, hasn't it? And you can see why if you know the Arsenal game. What's the first half of that? And that was pretty bad. Everton just weren't really there at all. But that's Arsenal there. We're a couple of games in. You know, they're going to be a decent team again next season. This is an MLS side. Sticking 4 passes with the 3-0 up in like 30 minutes or something as well. 35 minutes, something like that.
They hit the bar in a couple of... Obviously, we had chances as well, but they could have scored a few more.
You can see where his frustration is because he probably thought after the way he played towards the end of last season to sort of scrap the way out of things, he probably thought, right, we'll be on this bit now where they're just dead shit and not showing any character and falling apart like within half an hour of a game starting. But it's come right back around to that again. And it's like, the players are showing no character. I guess there was obviously no sort of cohesion or anything between the team. Looking at the side he put out, that's probably close to what we'll start with if we don't get any more players in. And it's, you can say it is only pre-season, but you can see why the manager and you can see why a lot of fans are getting a bit sort of touchy now because it is pre-season. It's only our second game, but there's 3 weeks until the season starts, or 18 days or something, isn't it? We're not looking like we're making much moves in the transfer markets, which we clearly need. So he's probably thinking, these first 6 games, we could be like bottom quite easily. If we get off to a bad start or get off to the sort of indifferent start, like when Lampard first joined, we could be in real trouble. And the last thing this lot needed to be playing catch up from then.
Yeah, Mike, what did you make of what Lampard had to say? Because it feels early to be going this extremes, and I suppose you can sit there and say it's only pre-season, but when the manager reacts like that in that kind of tone and with that kind of serious nature to his comments, you can't really say it's only pre-season, otherwise it wouldn't be enough to warrant that kind of reaction, if you get what I mean.
Yeah, I think it's a culmination of him being frustrated about a lot of things. I think that regardless of the financial constraints that that Everton are under, the situation that they find themselves in right now is not an ideal one, and it's probably not one that he envisaged at the start of the summer. I think pretty much up until the point that Everton sold Richarlison, it was like, right, okay, we can get cracking now. And it really seems like all of the summer plans have just been absolutely torn apart week by week by week. And there's no one really there to pick these plans back up, dust them down, and go, right, okay, here's option B, here's option C, here's option D. Feels very much we're in a case of, right, who's going for half decent wages in the Premier League at the minute then? There's no head of recruitment. That would be a massive source of frustrating because it's not his job. He said this, and I think it was an interview with The Athletic the other day. It's not his job to source and find the players. And that's music to my ears because we've had too much of that in recent years of managers coming in and going, I want this player, and this player, regardless of what you, Marcel Brands, want to do with the strategy. They're the players I want. And Mashiri goes, oh, okay, then let's do that. And that's what's happened. What Lampard said there, it's not my job to. No, it isn't. But it's got to be someone's. And at the moment, it doesn't seem like there is someone there actually carrying the camp for it. Whether you want to say that's Thelwell's job or not, it's just, it doesn't seem like the strategy has been put together very, very well. But Lampard picked up on some things that I've had as a thought in the back of my head for the past couple of months. Pretty much since we beat Palace, it's at what point do you stop glorifying that moment? At what point do we stop discussing like how great it was? Because let's be honest, we shouldn't have been in that situation. That shouldn't have needed to happen. We can all, as football fans, granted, the most important thing about football, it's not trophies. It's not like whether 11 fellas on a pitch who earn a lot of more money than I do, like win trophies. It's whether I can actually have fun on a Saturday, whether I can enjoy my time out with my mates in the pub after and before the football. that's what matters to me at the end of the day, and that's what does matter. So it's a bit of a fine line, but at what point do we stop sort of just deifying that day? Because it seems to have sunk into the players where it's like, bloody hell, it was great that won it. Aren't we brilliant? Didn't we do it? No, lads, you didn't. You shouldn't have been in that position to start with. The fact that you were there was laughable. It should be something they're ashamed of. It shouldn't be something they should be like, bloody hell, it was up there with like Champions League finals and World Cups and stuff. I don't want to hear any of that because it's not. Granted, for us as fans, that emotional rush is brilliant. But for them as professionals, they should genuinely be embarrassed by that. By us saying that, they should hear that and go, Jesus, we should not have been in that situation. But it very much feels like that's not happened.
Did you listen to the event that was done in Washington, D.C., I think, with Men in Blazers? And it was like that what you're saying there is, and I was speaking to Rob a little bit about this before on the transfer show, is that what you've just said there is exactly sort of what I thought on that. You know, Roger Bennett did some fantastic interviews, and, you know, there's great insight into the season, and we spoke to Gordon and Pickford and Dom and Lampard, and sort of, you know, went through that end of the season sort of game by game by game. But there were parts of that where I was listening to it going, this is sort of like we've won something and we're going back over it and picking through it like it's this great success story. And I know that we were all buzzing, you know, we'll all remember that night forever and what happened afterwards, and, you know, the rush of emotion and relief. But it did sort of feel, I just felt like a little bit awkward listening to it. It was a bit like, why is this being done in this?
Do you know what? Do you know what, Matt? We're allowed to. Like, we're allowed to because we don't play. We're not professional footballers. Like, the whole reason for the separation between professional footballer and fan that's gone over the past, 70, 60, 50 years or whatever, to really just make that gap as far and far as possible. Well, the God-given right that we have as fans then is to actually enjoy those moments and be like, bloody hell, that was great as a fan. Like, that's the bit that you put in front of it. As a player, that should be really, really embarrassing to be in that situation, to play for Everton Football Club and be in that situation with the amount of money that's been spent, with the aims and targets and all sorts. As a player, as a board member, as a manager, it should be really, really embarrassing to actually get to that point. I don't really want to hear very much more about how good of a night it was. Frankly, I'm more worried about what's coming next rather than brilliant. Yeah, we got by the skin of our teeth. It's just reminded me that, yeah, we got by with the skin of our teeth. We've got rid of our best player, haven't replaced him, haven't bothered actually sorting out the dysfunctional midfield that caused most of the problems in buying a proper destroying number 6. Like, not much has changed. Everything has actually just gone backwards. So harping back and looking at all the club's PR being like, bloody hell, it was a great night, wasn't it? It's not really washing for me at the moment. And I think with the players, it's had a bit of an adverse effect. And I think that's a lot of what Lampard was talking about. He literally said, I put it to bed straight away. The players haven't. Well, I think you've got your own PR department to worry about in that respect as well.
Well, this has been a problem with the club for years, hasn't it? They sort of celebrate like mediocrity.
Well, shite. It's not even mediocrity.
No,
it's shite.
Yeah, so like you think like the Magnificent Seventh DVD that everyone takes the piss out of. At the time, that was actually an achievement, but it wasn't a noteworthy achievement. It was like, well, we're not as shit as we were last year. That was basically it. And this is like, well, we're not as shit as we could have been because we could have got relegated. Which, as you say, Mike, at the time, for us to celebrate that with that release of emotion, I've never felt anything like it before. I don't ever want to feel anything like it again. But that was fine for us. But as you say, yeah, it's been sort of trumped as some sort of achievement, like finishing 16th, you know, and really scraping through and having the most wretched season probably any of us can ever remember. Yeah, it's time to draw a line under that. And, you know, we've got a really truncated pre-season this year. So there's no time to dwell on stuff like that. There's no time to be self-congratulatory because there's nothing to congratulate. And yeah, it does need to be sort of put to bed now. And you can sort of see Lampard, the player he was, the character he is, the stuff he's done in the game. That's why his attitude is, well, that's gone. That wasn't anything to be proud of. At the time, he made the right noises and like, this was brilliant. This was such a great occasion because it was. And we could all get wrapped up in that. But he's put that to bed. And as you say, if the players aren't and they're thinking, well, you know, that was good, that wasn't it? We're all right. And even in the scheme of it, we were shit for like an hour of that game. And had no business getting back into it, but did. There's nothing to be proud of anymore about that. It's gone. It's in the past, and you do need to look forward. And you kind of think, looking at that team last night that got smacked 4-0, if that's the team we're going to start with, I mean, Chelsea could absolutely wallop us. It's very, very worrying.
Yeah, we've seen Thomas Tuchel was kicking off with their players last night, though, wasn't he? So maybe all's not completely well with them.
I saw Gallagher's penalty.
Yeah,
I don't know what was worse, Delhi's miss or Gallagher's penalty.
Oh, Ali's miss was, I mean, extraordinary. I don't know how.
I've just seen it. That was something else.
Oh my word! Yeah, literally one of those which is harder to miss than score. To put it back to where the cross came from. But I mean, the transfers as well, Mike, is something that Lampard hit up on there. I don't think he minced his words in that sense. He sort of said that we need new players. Obviously, he's frustrated. I mean, what do you make of that situation now? Because it sort of feels to me as though it doesn't look like there's anything imminent in the pipeline. Obviously, we're trying to haggle down for Cornet by the sounds of it. Gibbs White apparently was excellent in Wolves' first pre-season friendly, so I don't know if that changes things for them. But it does feel increasingly like that, even if we got someone in a week down the line, are they going to be ready for that first game against Chelsea or the first few games before that the transfer window does close? It feels very much like at the moment for that first game, at least, we're going to be working with pretty much what we've got already.
I think you're looking at it from a very optimistic point of view if you're saying the first game at least, to be honest with you. I think you go back to Mashiri's comments of, right, we'll just check in with us at the end of the transfer window and let me know what you think. We've heard this before.
Five games there are before the window shuts.
So what we're going to do, we're going to start off with a 5-game handicap. Great, yeah, brilliant idea. Well.
6 ones Liverpool at home, and then Arsenal away after that. So
yeah, it's just brilliant, yeah. So you're going to start out with a 5, 6, 7 game handicap before you get players bedded in. It's just, this is an owner that's delusional beyond all recognition, and has dug a hole for himself. There's no more I can say about the man. I'm tired of talking about him. I think I've said so many times that I hope it's the last time I have to talk about him. I hope it's the last time because he can just go away and just do his job quietly and do what he's told by his football people. But every time you come back, you've got to say more about him because it's a problem of his own making and the board's own making. And I think that we end up in a situation where, yeah, we knew this summer was going to be tough. We knew it was going to be hard. Last year and this year, I think if you would have asked them inside the boardroom, all right, yeah, you can just survive the next 2 years and then you can crack on after that, would you take it? Hands down, they'd take it because that's exactly what the remit is now. And again, it's just shameful. It's shameful that the club is in that position where this season hasn't even kicked off and we already know how it's going to go. We all know that 5 games in, we might have 3-4 points on the board, who knows? And will we sit there looking around going, right, well, we need to do deals now, need to do them now. And they'll get a couple of people rushed in towards deadline day, have that 1 week before the international break, and then maybe they'll pick up, maybe they won't. It's terrifying how much closer and closer and closer they are to circling that train.
Just to come back on what you said about Mashiri there, and maybe sort of be devil's advocate a little bit, do you not look at the current situation and taking what he said in that statement at face value with regards to Kevin Felwell and Bill Kenwright working on transfers? Isn't this sort of what we want for him to take a step back on it and not go and re-sign El Ghazi again? He is sort of leaving it to, certainly maybe not Bill Kenwright in this case, but Kevin Felwell. He's leaving it to him to sort the transfers out. But I suppose what he's done is he's left them in a situation where it's very difficult to sort the transfers out because of the overspending he's done and the rules which we're sort of up against the wall against.
He's left them a note on the table saying, by the way, there's no money. Like that's in essence what he's done. But we can talk about, isn't this what we want him to do? Like, I didn't want him to do any of what he has actually done. I think that we can talk about what we wanted him to do. I think the strategic review that was spoken about and has been championed and we haven't heard the end of, I still haven't seen a head of recruitment put in place since.
Well, I read a report the other day saying that had been done. Didn't Mashiri himself say in a statement that the review's been completed?
Which is... That's like incredible. So the review is just, okay, actually what we do is we'll get rid of a person to sort transfers entirely and scouting. We'll leave the top of that scouting network completely unresolved, because there's not been anyone in that post since December 2021, which that's terrifying, because that's how situations like now happen. Do you know when you have players where you've maybe a couple of first choice targets fall through? You have what's his name? It's gone out my head. The striker, Chelsea, went on Southampton. When you got him going out and going, oh, okay, actually, no, I'll go to West Ham, and all the eggs are in that basket on loan. Well, if you don't have someone who's lined up a load of scouting missions all over the place to actually go and scout other targets and come up with other names, you end up in a situation now where I don't even think they know who they're going to end up with. It's just baffling. Just baffling.
I think it makes me realise how much heavy lifting Moyes did, because the club has been completely dysfunctional since he's been there and hasn't seemed to have any sort of a plan. And this is sort of like the end of it now, isn't it? This is like the end game of that mismanagement. So obviously Martinez came in and that fair transfer window did well, but his transfers got even more erratic as things went on. Then Moshiri came in and it just went nuts. And now this is the situation we're in. I actually would have thought it would have been impossible to spend that amount of money to go this far back and be this bad. But it's in itself, it is quite an achievement. And something that in a weird way should be applauded, because it's like a Brewster's Million situation. They've somehow managed to just like completely ruin the club with loads of money. It's mental. And
in regard, since the end of the season, lads, has anything really changed off the pitch, apart from a bit of a reshuffle in the under 23s and the academy setup, where it just feels like John Abrell gets a different job every week, and Leighton Baines is kicking around. I mean, off the pitch, in regards to leadership, in regards to boardroom level, as Mike mentioned there, in regards to Moshiri potentially surrounding themselves with football and people. I mean, it's all still the same, isn't it? I can't recall any changes being made. So it feels very much like the people that have been at the very top of the club to put Everton in the situation they're in now are still just all knocking around.
Yeah, well, that's, as you said, like, they've completed that strategic review, which was like new to us. That hadn't heard a thing about that, and they've got themselves in these situations. And to sort of go back before about the mediocrity on the pitch that they celebrate it in the boardroom as well. You saw the figures that like the third best paid board in the league, or the second behind Man United, who are equally as batshit crazy. It's like nothing's changed, and they're all quite comfortable. It seems. Because, like, as Mike said before, if they could just cruise through these next two seasons now while Rick Goodison just stay in the Premier League until we get the new ground, that would be job done for them, which clearly and patently isn't good enough for any of us. But they take that because they're just not invested in the same way, are they? Kenwright can give it the whole top blue thing, but he's clearly not as invested because he's just coasting. If we're doing this in work, although first thing you do when you get into a job is look for sky potential, obviously, and then you coast it for a bit. But, you get found out in work, don't you? And if you had people saying, he's not doing his job, at some point, someone will pull you up and be like, you're not doing your job. But this, the whole board is just seemingly getting away with it and quite happy to do that.
There's no one to answer to, though. That's the thing. Yeah. This strategic review. So it was conducted by the people at the very top of the football club, an investigation into how the people at the very top of the football club could have knackered it up so badly. And their decision was, actually, what we do is not change anything at the very top. That's like, you can talk about moving chess pieces around the board and doing all that, but great, yeah, maybe rustle a few feathers in the under 23s, maybe like get rid of an under 23s manager that's been there for a long time, or maybe to just move positions about so it looks a little bit more streamlined. But until things change at the very top, absolutely nothing will change, I don't believe. It's painful that people fall for it, that level. Oh yeah, there will be this strategic review. There wasn't going to be. There never was. We survived. We'll push out a load of content about how great the last home game was, and then we'll crack on doing the same shit on a different day. It was always going to happen, and it's just painful to see it play out. I think that's why people are so angry right now. There's been a lot of talk about people being overly angry and annoyed about a preseason game, and it's not about the game. It's got nothing to do with the game. Most of these people probably didn't even bother staying up to watch the game because why would they? It's not about the game at all. It's about the predictable nature of how this is going. It's about us knowing year to year that there are so many bad decisions being made, that there are so many things that people, regular people, that will go, that's probably a bad idea. And it is a bad idea. We shouldn't be able to say that. Like, we are just normal people. We couldn't run a football club. Like, put the three of us in charge of a football club, it'd be dead on its arse. But if you put us in charge of Everton at this moment, I guarantee you it will be run better than it is at the moment. That shouldn't be a thing. We shouldn't be able to say that because we'd still kill it off, but it would still be better. Like, it's terrifying me that it's got to this point.
A more dignified death for Everton was free.
But that's the thing. It's like it's got to the point where maybe Les not ringing up TalkSport and chatting to Jim White once a week would be an improvement on what's there now. Like, there is no saving grace. There is no, but yes, this is a great thing that they do anymore. There really is nothing. You can't hide behind Everton in the community forever. You just can't push it to the point where once you get relegated, it's like, but we still get this. Well, not if you have to sack people with redundancy pay because you can't be in the division anymore. Sometimes the football and what happens on the pitch is what matters. And the board are doing everything they can to make people forget about that. And they have done for a very, very long time, whether that's through PR, whether that's through other initiatives. But the one thing that does matter in football at the end of the day is results. And people are angry because those results are nowhere near the horizon. And we can see it now in that predictable marching nature that we've had for the past 3, 4, 5 years. We can see that predictability playing out over the next 5, 6 games before any players come in. Because, hey, maybe they'll get 2 or 3 players just before the end of the transfer window, and Mashiri will come out and go, see, lads, told you. Because he just doesn't get it. He doesn't understand the idea of forward planning. He doesn't understand that you can't start a season with a 5-game handicap when you've just survived relegation by the skin of your teeth and also had to sell your best player because your financial situation is so piss poor. He can't read a room in that nature, let alone read a football club. I'm just... What else can I say? No, that's it, isn't it?
Yeah, like, I'm just glad that Lingard's going to Nottingham Forest.
Oh, I couldn't. That would be me. That would be me.
That divvy $200,000 a week. Oh my God.
$200,000 a week for a few dances and obviously a goal against us and a goal against West Ham because we were stupid enough to offer him contracts for him to turn down.
Oh God. It's just quite, up until this week, I've been, even though we haven't signed anyone and Richarlison had gone, I had been looking forward to that game against Chelsea. And I'm sure as we get into the week building up to it, I will again. But it's just sad, isn't it, Les, that we're feeling a bit like this going
now
into the new season? Yeah. Because as much as we all agree that we shouldn't deify what happened against Crystal Palace or at the end of last season, at least what it did was build up some real positive momentum. Everyone was together. Everyone had belief in the manager. The owner came out and probably made a statement a bit too late, but promised change, etc., etc. And we had like something almost tangible to wrestle onto there and say, right, fucking hell, that was awful, but never again. This is how we're going to make sure we don't do that going forward. And as we sit here now, after a 4-0 defeat to an MLS side, it feels like it's all just, completely seeped away, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's just reverted to type, really, hasn't it? It's sort of, we're back where we were sort of last March or something like that, whereby the fans are like having a go at each other because they're sort of saying, well, why you bothered? It's pre-season. It's like
protest planned on Saturday,
things like that. And and you've got the worrying thing for me is that the manager's clearly falling out with the players again after last night. He's clearly back at that point, like he said at the start, whereby he doesn't really trust any of them. He doesn't really know what he can do with them now because he played the 3 at the back against Arsenal, didn't he? Said it's a bit of a needs-must thing because, we've not got that defensive midfielder, even though there's no evidence to say we're looking for one, to be honest. It's like nothing's working anywhere. Nothing's working, not just like in tandem with each other or any cohesion across the club. Just not one single part of that football club is working as it should be. And it is very worrying because that escape at the end of last season, I think a big part of the relief was we have dodged a massive bullet there because if we go down, that could be this club doomed. especially going into a new stadium. It would be the most ridiculous thing ever to get relegated and go into a brand new stadium like that.
I mean, look at how tight we are finances this summer, even with
yeah.
It
felt like, right, okay, we dodged that now. We surely can't be that bad next season. And I was quite convinced that we couldn't be that bad next season, but I'm not anymore. I thought there's no way we can be as bad as we were under Benitez, because that was just some of the most wretched football I've ever seen in my life. But we didn't improve that much under Lampard, really. He took a more pragmatic approach and got results. The games we won weren't exactly resounding victories or anything like that. There was a lot of emotion. There was a lot of atmosphere. That was great, but it was grinding out wins. So there's nothing to say that this team will now be better prepared for this season as it was last season. It's just nothing. Nothing is working.
Yeah, I think we should shelve any idea of trying to play pressing, expansive footy.
Oh, God, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a case of just do whatever works like last season. And that's really depressing, because you want to go into a new season, as you say, with a little bit of optimism, thinking, okay, we'll try something new. The team will know each other a bit better. They've had the summer to sort of work on things. The manager will, have an identity with this team, knows what he wants it to do. And I think it's going to have to be just revert to what we did at the end of last season and see how it goes.
Yeah. Any positives from the game? I've watched the two of them. Tarkowski looked all right. Played pretty well. Seems like he's going to be...
I like the kit.
A dependable player. I'm not sure about the kit either.
I don't like the sponsor, but it just looks rubbish.
Mike's getting the kit, aren't you saying?
I'll buy it when it's on sale in April. Yeah. Definitely. I mean, I'm not going to buy it now. I'm not made of cash. Do you know what I mean?
Always hang on.
Stanley Mills looked pretty good, I thought. He looks like a good player.
Yeah.
Lewis Warrington, okay, against Arsenal, less so last night.
It's just there's not very much to be applauding. There's not very much to shout about. Just buy a whole midfielder, have a functioning team that can do two different jobs, please.
Well, what has to happen now then, Mike, in the next few weeks for Everton to start to change it? Not change your mind completely about everything, but just to start making you feel a bit more positive as we go forward into this new season.
To make me think we won't go down.
Yeah.
Okay. Buy a whole midfielder.
To make you think that we're going to do better than last season.
Oh, okay. Well, that's more. Buy a whole midfielder. That's the first one. You have to. If there's one position they need, it's a number 6. We like the entirety of last season not being able to actually bother trying to play football was because defense and attack had absolutely zero link. There was no play in the middle of the pitch.
Is that a number 6 in the Jorginho mould or the Idrissa Gueye mould?
The Idrissa Gueye mould. Get someone who'll tackle the ball and give it to number 8. Get a midfield destroyer who can actually go seek out the ball, find it, put his foot on it, give it to 2 mobile number 8s who can do that job. Because fine, Alan is good. He's a good midfielder, but he's not a number 6. He cannot do that job. I need someone who's comfortable sitting in that position, and he's not just going to go roaming forwards and leaving a big, massive gap behind him. You need someone who knows their area, knows what they're going to do there, and just retrieve the ball, give it to one number 8s, start attacks off. That's what Everton need. And they also need a versatile forward because Richarlison is gone. And they need people who want to play for Everton. That's the key thing, I think, as well, is you need players that really have a desire to play for Everton, aren't just taking steps down like Harry Winks, who doesn't really care. He's had his go at the top. He wants a good contract somewhere else, but he might actually get some minutes. Who knows? Maybe he'll have a renaissance. Doesn't actually really care that much. As long as he secures a 5-year deal somewhere half decent, then that's good enough for him. Don't want them players. Lingard, thank God we avoided that. Can't believe they offered him a contract in the first place. A 30-year-old fella who is considering offers from Saudi Arabia. I don't want that at Everton. I don't want players who go, actually, do you know what? It's probably right for me that. I'm feeling that. That's like they're considering that. As soon as you hear that, you withdraw your offer because that is not the footballer you want. And we have learned those lessons. Well, we should have learned those lessons. I think we as fans have learned them. As I said before, put us in charge and we won't have people like that. That's the mental thing about this football club, is that they really should have learned these lessons. So get me players that want to play for Everton. You missed out on the likes of Jared Bowen, who was, when he was at Hull City, I think so many of us just said, brilliant, that's exactly the sort of player we should target. That's exactly the sort of player we should be after. that sort of player, you have to go and find them because they're not as easy to find at the moment because there are teams like Crystal Palace, like West Ham, like Brentford, like the rest of them, like Leicester, who are actually going out and just cherry picking all these players anyway. And Everton have kind of missed the boat on a lot of them. So it's time to actually invest in a half decent scout department and go and find and discover these talents instead of thinking that you're good enough to go, okay, well, we can lash 50 million at Swansea for their best player. And if he doesn't make the grade, then, we can do it again. But yeah, you can't do that. That's not how it works. You are not good enough. You are no better than these teams. Get that fallacy out of your brain. Go and start scouting players properly. Get me a holding midfielder. Get me a versatile forward. And I genuinely think that's probably all that Everton can afford to do in this window. So I'm not going to be unrealistic. I'm not going to say that buy me like another half decent attacking midfielder or whatever other people are crying out for, because I need those two positions filled to feel like Everton will have a chance going forward this season. Because at the moment, if you take this Everton squad right now, they get relegated. They just get relegated. And it's a travesty that we should be saying that. It's a travesty that I should think that that's disgraceful. And it shines a light on everything that has happened over the past 4, 5, 6 years to get to this point, because it's just every year circled the drain and got closer and closer and closer, bar one when we had a world-class manager at the helm who just about managed to scrape into the top half. Like, that's the only anomaly in there, and it's the outlier. It's got to this point now where that's probably all they can do. So do those two things, and yeah, Everton probably do stay up, maybe finish about 14th, 13th. If they don't, they go down.
What about you, lads?
Can't really add to that, to be honest. Pretty much spot on. Yeah. As you said, like we've been crying out for that midfielder since Garner left and Gbamin joined and turned into Norberg from naked gun. I also noticed in the Arsenal game there was it's the return of a huge gap between Calvert-Lewin and everyone else, which was nice to see. It was very reassuring return. So probably, as Mike said, a forward like Richarlison to maybe fill that, because at the minute, when you've got an attack, a non-existent midfield and a defence that are so disconnected, you're knackered. Yep. Absolutely no chance. I also think as well, it's going to be interesting from a fan perspective, whether we all reset our sort of, aspirations for this team and this club, because we can't, as you said, Mike, we are behind Palace, we're behind Brentford, we're behind West Ham, we're behind all these clubs who are sort of middle of the table. We can't go around now thinking that we're not. I think
that's really struck me this summer. It has sort of hit me, like when we've been linked to players and you've seen clubs like Brentford and Forest and Newcastle sort of linked in the same breath. And usually you'd be like, oh, well, if we really want that player, we'll go and get it. And it's sort of just like you're conditioned to think that because we've been ahead of them. Like this time, like when you see a rumour instinctively and you see those names, I've sort of thought, well, they're obviously going to go there. And it's definitely like been a tweak in the mindset, 100%.
Yeah, so I think it's going to be a case of that as well, because we're going to have to scrape out results. We're probably going to get beat by the teams we usually get beat by. We'll probably get beat by a lot of the teams we don't. We got beat by everyone last year, didn't we? So that doesn't really matter. But do you know what I mean? We can't be expecting to beat anybody in this division. Even the newly promoted clubs who we generally shite against anyway. Forest are going to bring a big following. They're going to have a lot of momentum. Fulham could be a decent team. Bournemouth always do our heads in. I think it's going to take a massive reset on the fans' behalf of expectations. But then we can't sort of sit back and just accept that and let the club get away with being run the way it is. It's horrible, isn't it? It's just not nice at all, and it's kind of hard to see the way out of it because the fan base once again is so fractured about everything.
Yeah, I'm going to start stocking up on blue smoke bombs now. Knocking on doors around Goodison, seeing there's any dogs we can carry in the before the matches start. We might need a fair bit more of that going forward. Dear me. What did you think the kit looked good?
I liked it.
It was a kit that happened.
Yeah. I was also struck by Andy Gordon's hair. It's gone very, very blonde, hasn't it?
Looks quite like Claire Baldwin.
He does.
He does look like Claire Baldwin.
Yeah.
We'll Probably our best player.
Yeah. If you want like kit, the new Venezia ones are great.
I don't like them. Like the shiny gold ones.
Oh, the gold one looks a little bit. It looks good as a blouse. The gold one, I think.
The gold one's scatty.
Yeah, but the away one
looks like that United kit they had years ago, which was gold.
But the jacket for the home one, I'm gonna buy that.
The tracky top's lovely.
Yeah, I like that.
And the away top's nice as well.
Let's rock up for this first day in the Denby Castle with Venezia gear. Oh dear.
Anything but Everton.
Yeah. Either of you lads going to Blackpool?
No.
I'm in Wales, unfortunately, because otherwise that would be an absolutely lovely day. You're going, aren't you?
Yeah, me and Matt Mosey are going.
Yeah, I really did want to go when it was announced. Because that is just the dream away day, that Blackpool down the fair, football, all good. But
when they were up last time as well, we drew 2-2.
Yeah.
Coleman scored. It absolutely pissed down. But I remember being in that pub on the front called the Manchester, and they just got completely overtaken by Blues, and some fella climbed up onto the DJ, like move in there and put loads of Everton songs on. It's fantastic. I'm hoping the same happens again on Sunday. But yeah, we'll do an instant reaction from that as well, so look out for that. That has been your weekly show. Cheers to Les. Cheers to Mike, who I'm sure is going to crack on with his rum pineapple.
Yeah, definitely.
Why not?
Yeah, it's basically the weekend, isn't it?
Yeah, it is now. Yeah. Do all those things that Les told you to do at the start. Subscribe, like, comment if you've got nice things to say. It all helps. And we'll be back again on Sunday after the game against Blackpool. If you want some more in the meantime, come and join us over on Blue Room Extra. It's patreon.com/Blue Room Extra. Works out about £1 a week. Cancel it whenever you want. Shows every day. And when we do sign players soon, we will be covering all that with special podcasts as well. So do check that out if you haven't already. Keep your head up the Toffees. We'll speak to you soon.